Hey everybody, and welcome to Stock Abilities. Today I'm going to be covering the Robinhood Cash Management and some alternative brokers to consider like M1 Finance and just how it relates to different savings accounts and bank accounts in general and why it's sort of a good deal, but at the same time there's a little bit of not a catch per se, but a little bit more to it. And if you want to learn more about what I'm talking about, just listen to the whole video. Make sure to like this video, share this video, comment below, and subscribe to the channel on the bottom right there and click the notifications button just to keep up to date with future videos that I do. Now with Robinhood Cash Management, they offer a 1.80% APY. That's an annual percentage yielded basically on your uninvested cash. What does that mean? That means if you invested $100, that by the end of the year, if you don't do anything, you get up to $1.80, which doesn't sound like much, but if you keep adding to it, so if you did 10,000, or if you even did 1,000 rather, then you get basically $10.80, and then if you do 10,000, you get $100.80, and so on and so forth. It does add up over time, but it's sort of good, sort of not. Alternatively, the best way you can do is keep reinvesting that money into the stocks or what have you. But as you can see here, you just join the wait list. Pretty simple. They do 1.80%. Interest is paid monthly based on the uninvested cash in your brokerage account. You can access your cash at any time with a MasterCard, no fees associated. FDIC insurance, so a lot of them offer that, but your cash is the program banks to be eligible for up to 1.25 million of FDIC insurance or up to 250K per bank and subject to federal DIC rules. And you can learn more by clicking on that. I'll be linking all these resources below, so you can check that out in the description below. Of course, as they claim, no catch, no minimums. There's no account minimums. There's no transfer fees, no foreign fees, and the list goes on. Other fees may still be applied to your brokerage account. They say no catches, and then they say that at the last sentence there. But I'm not going to go too much into detail there. I just wanted to show you guys basically comparison video between this and other things, and sign up for the waitlist there if you want to consider it. Link will be in the description below to Robinhood, and jump into M1 Finance here for very similar cash management and direct deposit, transfer money, spend with a debit card. They'll be offering 1.5% APY, and they will be offering a 1% cash back on all debit card purchases with no limits. So that's pretty good if you think about it. I mean, comparative to things like PayPal and stuff like that, a lot of places offer 1% cash back, and it's something to consider. It's a little bit different than what Robinhood offers. They do offer a little bit less of an APY, but M1 Finance is toned more as a long-term broker, and it's structured as such for better investing and things like that. So if you think Robinhood versus M1 Finance in the 2020, I would probably go with M1 Finance for long term, and for swings and things like that, Robinhood. I'm going to get into that a little bit here with Robinhood in just a second. But M1 Finance breaks this down a little bit clearer than Robinhood did. Annual fees, zero. APY, cost interest is zero. Cashback is zero, and then you get the 1% if you do the M1 Plus finance. And you get a debit card for plastic, tungsten metal if you do the M Plus. You get ATM fees covered, and so on and so forth. And traditional banks, these are the fees. You get 144 as a rough estimate comparison, and then 0.06 compared to 1.50%. Big difference. You don't get a fancy card like you do with an M1 Plus. Not that it really matters that much if you like fancy cards. ATM fees covered once per month, 4 times per month with M Plus, and then it varies with traditional banks. Balance minimum 0 0 average is $1.50 for most traditional banks. And then integration with investment accounts, yes, yes. Varies. FDIC insurance, it's pretty common. Everybody offers that if they're a legitimate broker. I'm going more into details about what APY is if you guys are curious. And it's indicates the total amount of interest you earn on deposits over 1 year, assuming you do not add funds for the entire year. Include your interest rate and the frequency of compounding interest. And obviously, with Robinhood, 1.80% is pretty good. But overall, unless you're investing significant amounts of money, the APY isn't going to matter much. You're going to come down to how good is the broker, how good is the customer service, how good is things like that. M1 Finance wins over that pretty easily. But if you want to do the math here, you can check out this resource below, and then it goes into a little bit of details here about how all that works out. And going a little bit further here, savings accounts with the highest yields, as you can see here, 1% requires a significant deposit, no minimum balance for the little bit less than 1%, 0.90, 0.90, 0.90. And with Robinhood offering 1.80, you can see how it might be sort of worth it, but I'm going to get into a second here why it's better to consider something outside of Robinhood as an alternative for cash management to 2020. And 0.8 in. Obviously, the percentages can differ depending on your local bank and you as a person, depending on how much you're investing initially, that might excite a bank more. But Robinhood's offering kind of on the higher end compared to others, but Robinhood is not really a bank per se. They're just a brokerage account, so that is something to factor in when you're investing as well. Some else to highlight here. If you're not familiar, that Robinhood had essentially an infinite monies glitch that people are exploiting through options trading with box spreads and things like that. I'm not going to get too much into detail about that. I might make a video on that, but I feel I kind of missed the trend on making a video on that. But essentially, things like this with Robinhood seem to happen all the time. I've personally had experience where I've been waiting weeks or months for a response to a customer support ticket. And on finance, I've never really had that problem. Obviously, with a bank, depending on who you bank with, you may or may not have that problem. Hopefully, you don't wait weeks or months to get an answer back on something in regards to your bank or savings. But when you compare it to, and think about it with Robinhood, obviously that's a big concern that you should have when you are essentially investing $100, even 1,000, or when you get into tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, then it becomes kind of an issue when you think about it in the grand scheme of things that you're holding your monies into something Robinhood where Robinhood is having trouble managing this kind of stuff. And then you're going to run into problems down the line where they have different restrictions and hassles with banks and other types of places because of this problem, and then liability suits and other things that might come arising from these problems. So, if you still want to consider Robinhood, you can. I mean, M1 Finance, you probably never heard anything about. I've never seen any bad press about M1 Finance, but at the same time, M1 Finance is not nearly as big. I've had a little bit of an issue with M1 Finance in the past, but it's not a major one. It was something totally unrelated where I asked them a question and they didn't really have a proper answer to it, but they did get back to me within 24 hours, which is pretty standard. Robinhood's response time, they don't even have a phone you can call anymore, so you can use that to factor into your decision. If you, of course, all the information below. If you want to talk about Robinhood or M1 Finance in the comments, you can leave that below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel in the bottom right. But I'm going to get wrapping this up here a little bit here. That essentially I run a Discord channel as well about stocks and things like that, different stock alerts. You can check that out. Stocks alerts, swing alerts, option alerts, and some crypto news and stock news, things like that. For freelancers, different freelancing ideas to make extra monies, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go into too much details, but you can check that all out in the description below. And I also do a Patreon if you want to check that out at some point too. And that's about all I wanted to cover in this video, so thanks for listening in and have a great day.